All and I welcome all the participants for the day two session. Um, I wish that this session will also make some learning and knowledge footprint by the end of the session regarding the understanding the philosophy of the research. At the outset, I congratulate once again the Bhimavaram Institute of Engineering and Technology for organizing this wonderful workshop and providing an opportunity for all the members who are interested to do the research and all. So yesterday we covered the review of literature part and how to go ahead
3157
of that.
0000.
And this is basically sensitizing the young researchers towards the research and clarifying the doubts, and then there should be some starting point. So that's why we have I prepared the review of literature and how to go ahead of that. And the brief understanding of the yesterday's session is like if you want to start the research, then you should understand the efforts of the earlier researchers, what they did and how they did, where they did, and based on that you can able to plan for your future research by understanding the or identifying the research graph. So that's what the review of literature clarifies. So review of literature also clarifies several of the general doubts, like how much sample I should take, or what kind of methodology I should adopt, or what kind of limitations of this study that can takes place. And it will provides you the searchlight kind of thing wherever you are struck. Suppose if you are able to find out the way, then you can contact the your guide, so that automatically the guide will provide a solution and identify a way out. But once you rely on the review of literature, like it provides more than 60% of the research problem solutions are there already, but due to the what we can call people are not focusing on this part and not reading the research articles published by the earlier research in that area, and they may become the more of the guide dependent, and their research will be delayed. With that introduction, I continue from the yesterday's aspect where we stopped. So we will discuss about the research process, maybe in a generalized manner. And before that also we will discuss about maybe the elementary or basics of research. And then more important thing is like what are the factors that judge for a theoretical contribution, or what are the important factors to publish a research article, or what are the key ingredients to prepare a research proposal, that we will discuss. And then we will continue the research process. Maybe I'll take 1 hour to 1.5 hour session, and after the maybe around 11:15, 11:30, so maybe 20 to 25 minutes we will have a discussion on that. And I'll assure you that the PPT or the information which I have gathered, and I will hand over to the team of the Byte Engineering College. And after the end of the FDP program, they have your email IDs and they will share. So no need of the worrying about the PPT and additional information that I have already gathered, and I'll upload to the I'll give it to the Byte Engineering College, and they in turn circulate or distribute among yourself. So this is what we attempted yesterday, and I think we completed the review of literature so far. So once you complete the review of literature, so these are the benefits for you. So you can evaluate the earlier efforts, and you can able to identify the potential gaps for future research, and why you are doing your research you can justify. So, and you can also identify your limitations of the study also, that may be become as future scope for the next researchers. So at this point I would like to say something like research is a journey and never a destination. So you have to do your part and somebody will do their part, and it is a continuous phenomenon. So we should not think that it will start with us and it will end with us. It's not like the phenomenon. So we will add our own little contribution to the whole theory, and the next people will also join in the same manner. So my next topic and today's topic is like research process and conceptual model development. So yesterday some people are asked about what is the important criteria for publishing articles, and what is a good paper, or like impact factor, etc., etc. So there is nothing good or bad. So it is like how you are creating an impact on the overall body of knowledge. So based on that, I prepared this research process and the conceptual model development. So to understand, because as many of you are teachers, so I don't want to go for the definition parts and etc. This, because these are all you are very much familiar with that. But this is the first one is very important. Research is simply defined as the journey from the known to the unknown. So known means what you are and where you are. Unknown means what you are aspire of. So at any point of time, we are having uh, we are having a desired aspects of that. So known is what the existing base, and unknown means what you are expecting. Like we will have a COVID-19 situation and scenario. COVID-19 medicine is till today it was not found, but known means there were several medicines that are available. So there is always this kind of situation, known to unknown. So research actually bridges the gap between where you are and where you wish to be. So you cannot avoid research in your daily life, or you cannot avoid the research in your business life. And most of the business innovations are all caused by the research only. So another definition, it says an elaborative way, a process of systematic gathering, recording, and analyzing of data relating to business problems. This is more of textbook kind of definitions. You can also identify another definitions like research, an art of scientific investigations, and organized inquiry, and search for facts. So whatever the definition, so you are identifying something, or you are attempting to identify a new thing, that's only possible through a proper research. So this is more and more elaborated definition of the research or understanding about the research. Discover new facts or verify and test old facts. So somebody tested long back and you can verify it, or you can able to test, you can able to identify new facts, analyze their sequences, interrelationships, and causal explanation. So this we will deal a little later. So at the end of the research, you have to identify, or you have to brief certain relationship between the variables. Let us say advertising and sales, they are related. So advertising and sales, how they are related? If higher the advertising expenditure, higher is the sales. So if it is proven, then you are making an attempt of relationship between the variables called advertising and sales. So that's what the second step, analyzing their sequences, interrelationships, and causal relationships, and develop new scientific tools, concept theories, which would facilitate a reliable and valid study of the topic selected. Whatever the products that you have been using now and then, these are all research innovations. So somebody worked hard in their laboratories and all, and then they developed different kind of products, and we are enjoying. So why research? So government is interested, and the whole world is interested towards the research. Why in terms of business research, maybe why the research is required is like there are only two drivers for the human life. One is comfort, and another one is convenience. So as long as the products and services are comfort and convenience, so there is a business for you. So you might be having the new methods of doing. If it is not COVID, otherwise we'll be delivering the traditional classroom method. But in terms of COVID, we cannot meet, so that automatically we are contacting in the Zoom. This is new for you and new for us, but it is comfort for us. So if anything that is comfort for the business, if anything that is convenient for the customers, then automatically those kind of products will have a business. And then the second one is to progress, competition, expansion, satisfaction, and leadership. So how a companies will excel among their competitors. So it's only the research. Most of the companies have their research wings, and they continuously strive for their betterment and progress, and then to innovate better than the best. So it is also a scale. So we cannot at any point of time we cannot say this is the best product or this is the best service. So we cannot imagine what kind of services and products we will be going to use in the future. So those kind of products and services also will take birth because of a good research. And to be effective and efficient, like cost reduction techniques or maybe management techniques, that is also you can use research. And then more important aspect is decision making. So how much price you have to fix, what kind of advertisement program you have to go. Anything is research dependent in the business. So without research, if you take a decision that that aggravates the risk, so the risk of losing the risk of loss, this is another important aspect. Research has to be extended, improved, and also challenged. Otherwise, it will perish. So, if you won't focus on the research, or if you won't extend on the research, so there is no development. So, everybody has to be focused. If you are not, and somebody will do, and whoever are focused on the research, they will excel neither in the business or not, nor in the society. Okay, this is very important and interesting aspect, which may answer most of your questions raised yesterday, and will also provide some benchmarks for you to do how to do research. So when we say a research article, or when we say about a research proposal, or let it be a PhD or something else. So what the fundamental aspects, why you are doing all these things, is like theory development. Theory development means a complete theory, according to David Wetton, professor of University of Illinois. So he contributed all these things. I borrowed the ideas from David Wetton, and then I have prepared this PPT. You can also search in the Google David Wetton theory development. You can also get his paper, and I will also upload to you later. So what he says is, whenever you are doing a research or thought of doing a research, you should answer these things. So 4 essential elements are there. So what and how are the first 2 aspects. What clarifies means which factors logically should be considered as the part of explanation of the social or individual phenomenon of interest. So phenomenon of interest means what factors that you are considering for the research. We'll take a small example, maybe everybody maybe easily understood, like, so we know demand estimation. So how demand is affected, demand of a product is affected. Suppose you would like to know the demand of a particular product. There are several factors are there. Demand is affected by price, demand is affected by income, demand is affected by the style, demand is affected by the guarantee, demand is affected by the service quality, etc., etc., etc. So there are a number of factors are there in order to study the one phenomena or research interest called demand. Let us say during the COVID-19, what kind of technologies has demand, or how tourism industry got affected with the COVID-19. If this is the research interest, that will become a phenomenon of research interest. So in that, some factors you may consider, or some factors you may not consider. So if you consider all the factors which explains the research phenomenon, then we will call it as the word called comprehensiveness. We'll call it as comprehensive. Suppose in order to explain any of the research phenomenon, and the researcher is taking all the factors to explain the research phenomenon, we'll call it as comprehensiveness. Okay, as we are all teachers, we too have the satisfaction working in a college or working in a university, or how the satisfaction of a teacher is determined. Teacher satisfaction is determined, or what factors affects teacher satisfaction. Then there were different factors are there: college environment, salary, increments, motivation, behavior of the peers, behavior of the management, etc., etc. There are a number of factors you can able to contribute. If you miss one factor, then there is a problem of explaining the satisfaction of a teacher. So comprehensiveness is the degree to which all the factors have been taken care. And then parsimony is another thing. Suppose if you take 101 factors to explain a research phenomenon, it is difficult to go for it. So some factors contribute very little for the research interest, and some factors contribute more to the research interest. So those factors which contributes less to the research phenomenon, you have to be avoided to understand the research phenomenon. So if some economics teachers are there, they will appreciate demand is affected by many of the factors, but law of demand says that price and demand are proportionate, inversely proportionated. That means higher the price, lesser is the demand, and lesser is the price, higher is the demand. In that case, price and demand has the strongest aspect, and the demand, law of demand also propagates the same thing. So it's not income, it's not other things and all. So what factors affects a research phenomenon, that has to be identified before doing the research. Whether all the factors that you have taken are really explaining the research phenomenon, one should ask themselves. Then how means factors related and provides causal relationships among the factors. Suppose if you taken the same example of demand, and you have taken factors of effect of price and effect of income and effect of substitute products or alternative products. So in that case, how price affects demand, how income affects demand, or how substitutes affects demand, that we can able to identify those relationships. We call it as causal relationships. We can take example of my own research area. So my research area is service quality, and the service quality is affected by the 5 important factors, that is called RATER: responsiveness, or tangibility, empathy, and assurance, and tangibles. So these are the factors where we can consider or what are the important factors that configure the service quality. So what is the responsiveness effect on the service quality, and what is the empathy effect on the service quality, or what is the tangibles effect on the service quality? We have to estimate that. That is how it will explain. So what means what factors you are taking to explain the research phenomenon, and how means within that factors, what is the effect of each factors on the research phenomenon, that we should know. So if you want to understand this, and again you have to do the review of literature and draw the diagram, so that you can have some better idea. What and how constitutes the domain or subject of the theory. Domain and subject means, if you are able to answer of what and how, then you have some clear understanding about your research aspect, research domain, and why. It explains why the identified factors are selected on what basis. So if you do the factor analysis, you will get the factor loadings. Okay, factor analysis maybe dealt tomorrow. So factor analysis means, if you want to reduce the data, reduction of the data, and identify important factors of a research phenomenon, we have a SPSS package, and factor analysis can be done. So the identified factors and their importance will be explained in the aspect of why. It is the theoretical glue that binds the model together. So don't worry about all this theory. I got some diagrams also, so that you can able to understand in a very simplified manner. What and how describes and why explains of your research. So what are the important factors that you are studying? Have you taken all the important factors for the research interest, and how the factors are related, and why only you have taken those factors for the research study? If you have your own answers, then this gives you some conceptual or theoretical knowledge and all. Then the next one is who, where, when, done on the same research area. So these sets boundaries of generalizability and as constitute the range of theory. Like who did, where they did, and when they did. Suppose if the same research was done by the people in different parts, then automatically you know the boundaries of research. Suppose if the entire India is covered with a particular topic, and then if it is not covered in Sri Lanka or maybe other countries, then automatically you have boundaries of generalizability of the research. So these are the places where covered, and this is the place which is not covered. So I can able to take up this area. So who, where, and when. Again, we will go back to understand this in a clear manner. Suppose if you want to prepare a research proposal, what means what factors you are considering for the understanding of the research phenomenon. So have you taken all the factors? If that is the question, comprehensiveness. You have to take all the factors. If you take more factors, that dilute the research, so you have to remove the factors according to the importance. So that is called parsimony. So you have to take certain factors which contribute more for the research phenomenon. This can be understood in another example. Suppose if you are suffering some illness, let us say fever. So fever is the observable symptom. Fever may be caused by many factors. It may be dust allergy, or it may be physical weakness, it may be stress, or etc etc. Suppose if you want to treat fever, what factors that the doctor will consider? So if you won't identify an important factor, fever won't uh, come down. If you are neglected an important factor, it is also a problem. So that's what a research phenomenon we have to take in, what factors are there. Then how means, suppose you have taken 5 factors or 4 factors to understand a research phenomenon, and then how these 4 factors are related with the research phenomenon, we'll call it as how. So this explains or provides you some clear understanding about your domain of the research. So why explains why only you have taken those factors and what is the basis. So theoretical glue means so you're good at what you are doing, and then who, where, when, they provide the boundaries for the generalizability, and generalizability are nothing but the scope of your research, so where you are and what you can able to go for it. So this is the model for our understanding. As I told, service quality is affected by 6 factors. So for our only understanding, I've taken the first one is physical aspects, second one is reliability, third one is personal interaction, fourth one is convenience, fifth one is courtesy, and sixth one is policies. Suppose if it is a retail store service quality, suppose when you visited a retail store or mall, or maybe an apparel store, etc etc. So how you assess the store service quality is good? So I have taken an example: physical aspects, appearance of the store, store layout, visible merchandise in the store, all those things comes under the physical aspects. Then reliability, billing, and guarantee, and quality of the goods that you get, that comes under the reliability of the store, whether the store pricing policies are good or something like that. Personal interaction means how the employees of the store is dealing with the customers. So are they are humble, are they are answering all your questions, or like that. Then convenience means, is the store timings, or the location of the store, or the way and how you move within the store, all these things comes under the convenience. Let us say if the store has a parking problem, and some people are may not be interested to visit the store because of the convenience or parking problem, so that also you can able to consider. And courtesy means, if you have a problem, so there is a repair, there is a warranty breakup, or there is a you want to reverse a particular order, or you have to cancel an order, so how they are dealing with that, that is all courtesy matters and all. Then overall store policies and attitude towards the customers we can consider in the policies. So all these 6 elements are contributing to the one research phenomenon that is called service quality. So I have told in the what factors. So these 6 factors are explaining the service quality. So if somebody asks why only 6, why can't be 4, or why can't be 10, so you should have justification. I'm saying that service quality may be affected by many factors, but I have taken 6 factors only, but I should have my own justification. So why I have taken all these 6 factors. Then service quality in turn affects customer satisfaction, in turn affects customer purchase behavior. So higher the service quality, higher is the customer satisfaction. Higher the service quality, higher is the customer purchase behavior, and higher is the customer satisfaction, higher is the customer purchase behavior. So this provides you some kind of understanding and becomes as a model for your research. So the entire past 2 slides, what factors means, I have taken 6 factors. How they are collected means they are connected like this. So service quality is assessed by 6 factors, and customer satisfaction is assessed by service quality. Again, customer purchase behavior is affected by assessed by service quality, and in turn, customer purchase behavior is affected by 2 aspects. One is service quality, and another one is customer satisfaction. So it is simple now to have. Suppose if you want to improve the or enhance the customer purchase behavior, you want to enhance the customer purchase behavior, that means you want to enhance, you have to enhance the service quality, or you have to enhance the customer satisfaction. If you want to enhance the customer satisfaction, you have to enhance the service quality. You have to enhance the service quality, then you have to enhance all these 6 factors. So this is what research model. If you done this, then half of your research is completed. Then simply you collect the data, prove those relationships, test those relationships, and then submit. Then the research is done. But to arrive this, then these are the two aspects you have to focus upon. What factors need to be taken to explain the research phenomena and how they are related, and why only those factors, and who, where, when they did on the service quality research. So you will get this particular model. And the 6 factors, suppose service quality is there and it is characterized in the 6 factors, and these 6 factors may be assessed with the asking about all these 26 questions are there to assess the service quality scale. So this is what modified retail service quality scale, RSQS, which are used. So the store has modern looking equipment and fixtures. Materials associated with this store services are visually appealing. So you are asking different questions to assess the service quality of a particular individual. Let us break up this and we will discuss a small aspect. Suppose how intelligence of an individual will be measured. Intelligence of an individual. So intelligence is something like unobservable, but intelligence can be measured by asking certain questions like maybe your reasoning ability, and maybe your arithmetic ability, or maybe your problem solving ability. So I frame 10 questions for problem solving, I frame 10 questions for arithmetic ability, and I frame 10 questions for problem solving ability. By answering all these 30, you can measure the intelligence, as simple as it is. So intelligence is observed with by asking 3 dimensions or 3 factors. One is problem solving, another one is arithmetic ability, and third one is reasoning ability. So you can ask why only 3 factors. You should justify. So intelligence is not characterized by only these 3. There are several aspects are there. Maybe critical incident behavior maybe one of the aspect of the intelligence that you can able to go for. So the research aspects is like, in order to measure something, there will always some factors that will be affecting, and what are the factors you have to identify. So you can measure intelligence, you can measure stress, you can measure love and affection, or you can measure curiosity, or you can measure most of the feelings and all by asking certain questions. But one should be reasonably think that whether the questions that you are asking are directly related to the aspect of measurement and all. That is another aspect. So we'll discuss a little later all these things. So service quality is measuring with these 26 items, and then these are the 7 items. Or items means is nothing but questions. 7 items I'm using to measure the customer purchase behavior, and for 1 to 13 is measuring for customer satisfaction. So the job is easy. I'm measuring service quality by 26 questions, and I'm measuring customer satisfaction by asking 16 questions, and I'm measuring customer purchase behavior by asking 7 questions. How this number got arrived? Why only 26? Why only 7? Why only 13? Again, your review of literature will answer you all these questions. So are you can able to modify it, or how your earlier researches of the same topic have been identified. If it is a scale, that means somebody have been already used, and then with the permission of the earlier researchers, you can able to use the scale. So we also can discuss the scaling technique. So you can have some clear understanding about what you are doing. I think now it is clear of the theoretical development. By doing all those things, you are making a relationship between the variables, 3 important variables, that is service quality, customer satisfaction, and customer purchase behavior. So this differs from my research to your research. Suppose your research is on employee behavior, then the variables will differ. Your research is on sustainable development, then your variables will differ. Your research is on accounting research, then your variables will differ. Your research is on computer science engineering, then the variables will differ, or the model completely will differ. But identify the factors and draw a model so that it will provide you, you yourself will be confident about what you are doing and provides you some knowledge glimpse. And judging factors in conceptual research papers. This is also a little bit theory, but if you follow, you will really enjoy it. So this is why my paper got been accepted, or why my paper rejected, and whether it is a good paper. There is nothing good and bad. It is only relative. There is no rich and poor. It is all relative. So somebody are always ahead of you. Somebody are always behind you at any point of time in terms of intelligence. So there are many people who are intelligent than you. So there are many people who are less intelligent than you. So where you are, that is more important. So the judging factors means what's new is one factor that we should ask ourselves. So significant contribution in contrast to the current thinking. Suppose if you are submitting a research paper, is it a routine paper or some contribution may be identified with that paper that comes under the what's new factor. So the newness can be measured with the two aspects. One is scope and another one is degree. Scope means how much field or extent is impacted. Our degree means how different is this from the current thinking. We will say I submitted a paper problems and problems of weavers in East Godavari district. Then the scope of the paper is like it is only helpful for the East Godavari district. That means maybe East Godavari maybe 100-kilometer radius. So eastern the scope is very limited. Suppose if I made a paper of problems of weavers in India, then the scope is more. Then problems of weavers in general, then the scope is more and more. So you should also understand to what extent or how much field or extent or maybe get benefited or impacted by your research findings. You can able to understand. Let us say if COVID-19, if somebody identified a drug for COVID-19, you cannot imagine the whole world is awaiting for it. So the scope is more and more. Everybody will cite and everybody will give. So it provides you the opportunity to explore yourself. Degree is another factor. It is like how different is this from the current thinking. Current thinking means contrast means it is different. If the contrast that is acceptable, if the contrast or the newness that is really beneficial, then we will understand, then the newness will be easily injected. Suppose earlier how people take decisions. So they take decisions by experience. Now how people are taking decisions. People are using artificial intelligence or data analytics. Maybe computer science people are doing that. Why data analytics? Because it provides you, it helps you to take decisions at a very faster level. So data analytics is useful for decision making so that data analytics is useful. So in that manner, you can able to understand the research phenomena. Whatever the research proposal or research article that you are submitting to a journal or preparing a research proposal for in an organization for funding like ICSSR, UGC or DST, then you should understand, is your research article is really significantly contributes something to the body of knowledge or theory of development. So that newness can be measured either in terms of scope or either in terms of degree. So last year we got a research project in ICSSR that is called Assessment of Service Quality in the Higher Education. So we got funding from the ICSSR, we completed successfully. So in the southern India, we have taken assessment of service quality in higher education with reference to southern India. So you can ask why southern India? Because we have limitations. We cannot, we don't have time or we have our own constraints and all. So based on that, somebody can come northern India or something like. Then when we completed the higher education, we again applied for service quality in school education. Now we are doing that. So again, the scope and degree, you can able to understand what's new is there. Then second question or second factor that most important for judging the papers is so what? Suppose will the idea or research likely change the practice of organization science in this area? Suppose you are presented, you submitted an article. Is that article is really changes the practice? So I have given an example of Professor C.K. Prahalad. He submitted an article. The article name is "The Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid." So earlier, the manufacturer used to manufacture in bulk quantities, but he suggested that if you want to increase the sales and if you want to increase the profit, so prepare in small quantities like sachets and all. And it is a revolutionary thing. So people are ready to buy, are happy to buy in small quantities rather than the big quantities. The research finding is one line, but he did lot of research, and he's the one of the most renowned management thinker, and that have been changed the practice. Every manufacturers earlier used to manufacture in big quantities. Now they are manufacturing in small quantities. You see a shampoo, you will get it in 1 rupee sachet. You see a cool drink, there are different sizes. Maybe 100 ml, 150 ml also you are getting. Earlier it is not that. If you want to buy a cool drink, you have to buy it for 300 ml. So that is the so what means, will idea or research likely change the practice of the organization's science in this area? You should ask this. Then again, why so? This questions the underlying logic and supporting evidence of the research. Are the views of research believable? Suppose we'll be having some ideas which are not practically possible, or which are not currently not feasible. So you should ask, to what extent you have an innovative idea and that is not feasible or practically difficult, then there is no question of adopting or what we can able to say, taking up that particular research idea. So research that really possible and feasible has to be taken. So why so answers that. Then well done means that the research reflects seasoned thinking, conveying completeness and thoroughness. Did you cover all the things? Maybe somebody may be having good knowledge, maybe somebody may have good English, or what we call it as making up of the things, and then they have the higher presentation skills. So they may not be having the content or essence, but they present in a beautiful manner the paper, but the paper doesn't have any contribution to the field. It is a done well paper. Well done paper means it have completeness, it have thoroughness, it have content, it has properly organized, properly communicated. It is a well done well done aspect. So you have to question yourself, is your paper or is your research is well done or done well case. Done well means, suppose somebody without having content with their language and all those things, they may manipulate or they may make up the things, but their papers get published and they may got award of the research aspect. That comes under the done well. But well done is a long lasting, and done well is short term. So that where you can able to understand this. Then why now is like, is the research contemporary, whether it advanced the current discussions. So if you have a research proposal and you ask yourself, why now this research? So is the research syncs with the present scenario or not? So that is also answers in this case. Who cares what percentage of the people or academic readers are interested in this research? Suppose if less percentage of the people are interested, then you may not having the citations, or nobody follows your research. So who cares, or what percentage of the population or people will be get benefited out of this research? One should also ask. So I'll again reiterate these things. So judging factors in conceptual research papers, these are having several important factors. What's new? So you should ask yourself, is your research is significantly contributes at least one important or some important contribution from the body of thinking that may be measured. Your newness or your innovation in the research may be measured with the scope and degree. Scope means how much field is extent or impacted. Degree means how different is from the current thinking, or that difference is acceptable or not. Then so what means, whether really it will change the organization practice or decision making phenomenon, or in what aspect it is useful. Then why so means, like this questions underlying logic, support evidence of research, are the believable or possible or feasible. So that is also we have to answer. And well done, does the research reflects the completeness and like a full-fledged research proposal, or you just prepared the research proposal for the sake of preparing the research proposal? That's also different. Done well is, if you're preparing for the sake of preparing, it is done well. You like to work and you really worked and then you are prepared a research proposal, it is a well done part. Then why now? It is understand the significance of doing research in the present scenario, and who care what percentage of the people are academic readers are interested in this research. Suppose if research that is no use of research and you are taking up that particular research, then there is no use of it. So why now and who cares answers this, answers the practical applicability of doing the research in the present scenario. I think these two aspects provides you some understanding about your research. So research should be your choice rather than chance. Suppose you are doing research for the sake of getting promotion or getting awards or something like that, then you may not be really immersed with that or completely involved with that. So there is no emotional attachment with the researcher and with the research work. That is happening now. So researcher and research work should be immersed and psychologically and emotionally connected, then only the research will flourish. That's what one line I would like to say at this point of time. And if you are doing research for getting awarding, that's a different story, and I don't have any answer for that. So after understanding all these things, just we will go with the research process, and this is elementary. And those who are teaching research methodology and marketing research, or maybe any of the research related subject, they can able to easily understand. So I don't want to spend more time on this, but quickly go through the research process and important aspects where I'd like to specify, so that you will have some maybe a different understanding about the research process. So first step is establishing the need for research. Step one, defining the problem. Step three, establishing the research objectives, determining the research design, identifying the information types and sources, determining methods of accessing data. This is all a sequence. Suppose if you are understood what is your research problem, next is only execution. So why people delay in the research means they don't know for what they are doing the research and why they are doing research. If they know what they are doing research and for what, why they are doing research, and automatically research problem is defined, the next one is execution, and execution won't take much time. So another steps are there. So designing the data collection post, determining sample plan and size, collecting the data, analyzing the data, preparing and presenting the final research report. I will share this PPT to you, and if you like, you can use it. So this is the first one, establishing the need for research. Research is not required when the information is already available, and research is not required to take simple decisions or unworthy decisions. So research is required with really whether it is really in need of that. So spontaneous decisions for something like we don't do research, and a seasoned or well information needs are there, then also we don't conduct the research. So the next one is problem definition. It is like the formulation of the problem is often more essential than its solution. So if you understand for what purpose you are doing the research, then automatically it is very easy to case. So there is a good saying about a well-defined problem is half solved. So if you know what you are doing, define the problem, and we have objectives like SMART: specific, measurable, actionable, reachable, and timelines. So the research problems, if you adopt the SMART characteristics, then automatically you can able to go ahead at a greater fastness or pace. And another aspect I would like to mention is, suppose if you have 2-3 research problems are there, it is like that I would like to know the attitude of customers, as well as I would like to know the customer satisfaction levels. Then automatically you have to rank order the research problems. So which problems really are important, you give ranks to the research problem 1, research problem 2, like that. And research problem 1, you adopt a different methodology. Research problem 2, you adopt a different methodology, and don't combine or overlap the research problems, then it may not gives you some proper understanding. That also we will discuss. Suppose I want to increase the sales is one my problem. I would like to know the methods of ways of increasing the sales, and second one is I would like to increase the customer satisfaction. These are the two research aspects. Then two research aspects then should be carried on in two different methods or two different aspects. So if you club, then automatically overlap will be there, and there may not be having fruitful findings out of it. And establishing the research objectives, once the problem is defined, once the problem is fully planned, then automatically you'd like to know what it is in that. So what is it that you want to know in the research problem is research objectives. So the problem may be very big, or maybe the problem may be broken down into small bits and pieces. Then we can able to assess into research objectives. We'll take an example, like I would like to know the effect of service quality in retail stores. So that is what my research area or research interest. Then you can able to frame the objectives, how service quality and profits of a retail store are related. That may be your research objective. What critical factors constitutes the or affects the service quality, that may be the another objective. How service quality factors affects customer satisfaction, or how service quality factors affects customer future purchase behavior. So I have drafted 4 research objectives based on the problem defined service quality in the area of retailing is the problem. Then I have drafted 4 research objectives based on the defined problem. If you have a problem in the definition itself, then automatically you cannot formulate good research objectives. It is a continuous and carried on. Then the next one is research design. It is like a framework or blueprint for conducting the research, or a miniature aspect. Suppose if you are constructing a building, then automatically you will construct the prototype. Like if you are constructing an apartment, then you will have a prototype, so that it gives you some full-fledged view about how, after completing the work, how it will be look like. So before conducting the research, then you have to go for a blueprint of that. So how I am collecting the data, and where I am collecting the data, or what kind of instrument I'm using, and what kind of statistical techniques that I'm going to use, what kind of softwares I require to complete my research. All these things comes from the aspect called research design, and it is the framework or blueprint. So it details the procedures necessary for obtaining information needed to structure or solve the research problem. Suppose if your research problem is there, end to end or step-by-step process, so that you can able to complete the whole research part, we'll call it as a research design. Suppose if you are submitting a research proposal, then you have to prepare the introduction or significance of the study or need for the study. Then you have to go for the methodology. Then you have to go for the objectives. You have to do the review of literature, and then you have to add the likely contributions after completing the research report. You have to give a tentative schedule. All those things will provide you some overlook about how you are carrying out your research. It helps you like where you are and where you can complete the research work. Then step 5 is like identifying the types of resources. This is also you are very much familiar with. We have two types of sources are there: primary data and secondary data. We are already discussed that primary data is with the discussions data that is collected afresh. Secondary data, research articles, and there are n number of sources are there to collect the primary data as well as secondary data. So these are the methods that are used for collecting the secondary data. These are the methods that are used to collect the primary data. So primary data sources, you have field surveys, observations, FGDs. Secondary data, you have indexing journals, review article, textbooks, dictionaries, bibliographies, etc., etc. Then these are the research information that you are available because of the advancement of digitalization and online resources. There are n number of sources by typing the keywords of your research. So you will be now connected to the world, what is happening all over the world in the proposed topic. Then you have to download and you have to read. Then if the data is related, you can able to prepare a good proposal. Then all the theses that are submitted to the Indian universities, you have Vidyanidhi is there. You can get the soft copies of the theses submitted so far. And then you have the MIT thesis are also available. And during the COVID-19, many of the universities are giving free access to their libraries, whatever the Stanford, Harvard, or whatever the university or IISc Bangalore, anything. If you know some contact person or some link is there, then automatically you can connect with the database. Now getting the data is not a tough or difficult task. So you can connect, you will get it. And design the data collection forms. We have questionnaires and observation study forms. I told that emotions can be measured, feelings can be measured, love can be measured. So again, my colleague Dr. Uma Maheshwari will be dealing on questionnaire preparation and factor analysis. So I don't want to touch what is meant by an instrument, what is meant by a questionnaire, and she will take care of questionnaire preparation and development tomorrow. So this I would like to focus on measurement of data. Measurement of data is like, if you have a data, you have to assign numbers to that. So the theory of assigning numbers to the data, we will call it as data measurement, which is also a tough task. So whatever that exists in this world exists in some amount or some form. How you assign the numbers to that attributes matters. So everything is possible to measure in this world, but by using an appropriate technique or appropriate method. So that's what we call it as measurement data is there. But we have some unobservable things are there, and with the observable things we can able to measure. Just go for this. This is a basic measurement model. Technically, people are calling it as construct, and measure 1, measure 2, measure 3. Let us say construct is unobservable thing. We cannot observe it, which is intangible. Measure 1, measure 2, measure 3 are observable things. So by asking the measure 1, measure 2, measure 3, we'll be measuring the construct that called as a measurement model. Let us say stress of an individual, we can take an example as a construct. So we cannot directly measure the stress, or we cannot directly observe stress. Stress is within an individual. So how stress is measured? So we have a stress measurement questions are there. So question 1, how friendly you are, do you like to mingle with others? Suppose if you are alone, what you will do? So there are a number of questions are there. So measure 1, measure 2, measure 3, by asking certain questions, you have to, your intention is to measure the construct. The construct is stress. The question may have some error. That's what we call it as error 1 and error 2 and error 3. And how many questions are required to measure a construct? If you are able to know, then automatically you can able to develop construct. So you can measure anything by asking appropriate items or questions. I think we'll take another example. Temperature, how we are measuring? We are measuring temperature by using thermometer, but temperature is invisible. We can only feel the temperature, but we will observe the temperature by using a thermometer. Thermometer is a scale. So if you measure the temperature, thermometer comes under measure 1. So thermometer temperature is the observable thing, but actually temperature we cannot measure. Like love also we cannot measure. So how much love do you have with your family? We cannot measure it, but it can be measured by asking certain questions. But love is an unobservable thing, but we can able to understand the love by asking certain questions. Whether the questions are really measures the construct that is called love, then automatically it is a perfect measurement model. Why I'm saying all these things, suppose if a research problem is there and you are asking some questions or some items that are not directly related, the entire purpose of doing research may go in vain. So an appropriate question should be there for the appropriate construct. Okay, these are the 4 types of scales are there. So nominal data, ordinal data, interval data, and ratio data. And then for nominal, it is like to only for the purpose of identification, we will use nominal scale, like are you a male or female? So it is only for the identification, household number, Aadhaar number. So there is no significance. Suppose my Aadhaar number is less than your Aadhaar number, that doesn't mean that I am less than you. So it doesn't have any purpose of that. So some of the cases where you want to measure, are you married or unmarried? So it is only for the purpose of identification. So these kind of scales, we'll call it as nominal scales. Suppose you would like to know the demographics of respondents, then automatically age, gender, marital status, etc., etc. We have to use the nominal scales. So we cannot, if male or female, there is no greater than or less than. It won't works for that question. So then you have to use the nominal scale, because computer, whatever the data that you are collecting, you are entering into a computer. Then the computer reads the numbers. Suppose if you given 1 for male, 2 for female, then if you don't adopt a proper scale, then automatically 2 is higher than 1. The computer thinks that female is greater than the male. If you put the nominal scale and given 1, 2, then it says 1 is equal to 2. So okay, that we will discuss tomorrow. Madam will deal with that. And ordinal data, suppose if more or less, suppose ranks has to be given, then we will go for the ordinal scale. Suppose in a class of 30 and who is first and who is last, then you have to go for the ordinal scales. Then interval scales are like ratio scales, will be used for distances have meaning, and there is an arbitrary 0 point, and most of the researchers, they use the interval scales and ratio scales. So for the distance from one point to the other point is exactly same, then we'll call it as interval scales or ratio scales. And we have a scaling techniques also, if time permits, that we will also deal with the scaling techniques also. So nominal scales, mutually exclusive categories, and no arithmetic properties. Examples: gender, location, marital status. Statistical operations, mode, frequencies, and cross tabulations will be used. Suppose you use the nominal scales. And if it is ordinal scales, it implies more or less, but not how much more or how much less. So you can use median or mode, but not average. and cross-tabs. So we are coming into the technicalities. Once you understand the philosophy of doing research and theory of research, then you have to prove some relations and you have to collect the data. Then all these things comes into the picture. And interval and ratio scales, number in the scale represent equal increments. Suppose you want to measure the satisfaction of an individual. So generally we will take five-point scale. Like 1 is for very much dissatisfied, 2 is dissatisfied, 3 is neither dissatisfied nor dissatisfied or neutral, 4 is satisfied, and 5 is very much satisfied. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 you are giving. So that means it is a scale. So the distance from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 and 3 to 4 is equal. Then we will call it as an interval scale, like that. So we have Likert scales are there. So Likert scales are tested and valid. Then automatically we are using for its scales have the most desirable statistical properties. Like you can do the regression, correlation, all other techniques if you have taken the interval or ratio scales. I think this may be helpful for you. And this is how to prepare the questions, structured or unstructured. Tomorrow, madam will discuss. And then I would like to spend a little time on this another important aspect of the doing research, or maybe preparing the questions or model. So reliability and validity. So whether you are preparing a questionnaire or something like a case, you have to check the reliability of the questionnaire. Reliability means a person responds in the same or a similar manner to an identical or nearly identical measure. Repeatability, we'll call it as reliability. Suppose you framed a questionnaire and then people are understanding the questionnaire in a different manner, or the same individual is understanding the questionnaire in a different manner. That means you have to change the questions. So we will test like this. Suppose you asked some individual, do you like sweets, on the first question. So he said, yes, I like sweets. Maybe after the 15th question or 16th question, again you are asking an indirect question, how frequently you buy sweets. Then the individual responds, I never buy sweets. So in the first question, he's saying that I buy sweets. Maybe on the 15th question, you are indirectly asking that how frequently you buy sweets. He is giving an answer called I never buy sweets. Then that means either the respondent is not understanding what you are asking, or the questionnaire is having the problem. If you apply to the 50 people and then 50 people are also responded in the similar manner, the questionnaire is having the reliability problem. That means repeatability should be there. Suppose if the likes, dislikes, the preferences states, when you are measuring recording, so it should go in the same manner. Suppose if you are doing a research for 1,000 people, 2,000 people, entire country, or a greater aspect, if the question is not reliable, then you will be having different answers for the same question. It's not different answers, but the same individual answer to the same question differently by the same individual. Then the problem is reliability. So reliability can be simply defined as the degree of consistency with which a scale measures a specific attribute. So consistency of measurement. Let us say you purchased some weighing machine. You purchased some weighing machine from the shop. So reliability means, and you have weighed yourself, and it is indicated 75 kgs. You weighed in the morning, it is indicated 75 kgs. You weighed in the evening, again it is indicating 75 kgs. You weighed in the night, again it is indicating 75 kgs. Then we can say that the weighing machine is correct, reliable. Suppose in the morning it is 74 kgs, in the evening it is 79 kgs, next day it is 78 kgs. Then you can say that, but your weight is 75. Then the measurement has some problem. I think you got my point. So whatever the question that you are asking should be measured repeatedly, consistently, the same aspect. We can call it as reliability. The second one is validity. Validity means the ability of the measure being used to accurately measure what it is supposed to measure. Suppose you are asking, it is not simply asking a question. For what purpose you are asking the question, then that has to be fulfilled with that question. Then we will call it as validity. For general phenomenon, weight is measured in kgs. So this is standard and valid. Suppose if you are measuring weight in meters, then it is not measured. But meters is a different scale which is used to measure for distance, and for weight is kgs is used to measure the weight. But two are different aspects. Suppose you are using meters to measure weight, then your instrument is not good. Suppose there are some questions to measure curiosity of an individual, and the same questions you are using to measure the customer satisfaction of an individual, then you are not measuring the curiosity, customer satisfaction. So what items that you are taking is very important. So reliability and validity can be easily tested in SPSS. So you have Cronbach alpha, and above than 9, if you got the Cronbach alpha, then it indicates the higher the Cronbach alpha value indicates the higher reliability and validity of the questionnaire or the sample model. Again, I have shown some model and I prepared some questions. If you, I prepared some 26 questions to measure service quality. I applied the reliability and validity, and the Cronbach alpha or the values are high, so that I kept the questions. Suppose if the values are not good, that means some questions are not related to measure the service quality. Some questions are not related to the customer satisfaction. I have to remove the questions and I have to add the another question to measure the construct. So I think reliability and validity one should check before finalization. So this is another thing: phrasing, sequencing, layout, duplication, unbiasedness. While preparing the questionnaire, one should focus upon that. And this we will take more time after that. And sample plan refers how you are drawing a sample from the population. Sample size refers how many units are required to estimate the population. That is also we will discuss. Then data collection. When you are collecting the data, you will be having several errors. The respondent may not be interested. The respondent may be having a different perceptions. Your intentions are different, and the respondent intentions are different. I'll give an example. Let us say when you are watching a movie with your family members, then the movie is same, but among your family members, it is understood differently by different individuals. Somebody may like dance, somebody may like fight, somebody may like the picturization and all, but movie is same. Suppose if I'm teaching the class to all the participants, some participants may like the class, some participants may not like the class, some participants may got confused with that, but my class is same. So it's the difference among the individuals rather than in the class. So individuals have different perceiving abilities, individuals have different understanding abilities, so accordingly they understand differently. So when we're connecting the research, when you're asking the individuals, so you should reduce that particular that particular perceptual errors. So when you are preparing a questionnaire and all it should be easily understood. You go to the you should frame a very easy language, so which should be easily interpreted and communicated in the same manner to all the individuals. So that again will be taken care. And collecting the data, interviewer bias will be there, respondent bias will be there. Suppose if the respondent is not interested also, somebody will compel the respondent to answer. Somebody, they fill the questionnaires on themselves, so they don't go to the respondent, and they fill themselves. It is called cooked data. So suppose I'm saying that I'll collect the sample from 100 respondents, and I ask some my friends to fill on behalf of the participants, and I do some tick marks, and I do some 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing, and then I'll fill it. So these are the cases how the research is happening, and these are all reflects in errors. So once you got the data, you have to clean the data, and errors will be there. Like suppose, what is your age? Somebody's age is 21, and mistakenly he is added 211. So 211 is practically impossible. But if you enter 211 in the age parameter, and the system gives a different kind of yielded answer. So the maximum life an individual is 100, but somebody mistakenly entered as 211. So nobody lives for 211 years. So we have to check for the extreme entries of the data. Suppose a questionnaire having 5 entries, 1 to 5 is the entry level, and somebody entered 50, then that particular item should be or the particular questionnaire should be deleted for the appropriateness of the data. So prepare and finding the present report. Once you done all these things, you have to prepare the report in a beautiful manner, like a draft, and submit to the institutions, whether it is a university or paper or maybe a proposal, in a more readable format. So it doesn't matter what you did, and how you are presenting is the paper matters. So beautiful presentation and diagrammatically represented, summarized and nicely sequenced will definitely draw the attentions of the stakeholders of the research. So I think we'll stop here, and maybe for 10 minutes, if you have some doubts, you please ask, and we will go to the next session immediately up to this particular part. I request if somebody maybe 10 minutes, then we will again proceed. Otherwise, I'll proceed to the next one. Hello. If no doubts are there, we will proceed to the next one.
So, any participants, do you have any doubts regarding, or shall we proceed?
Till this slide.
Hello.
Madam, tell me, madam.
Ma'am, please introduce yourself and you ask query, ma'am.
Yes, sir. I'm Srilata from Stanley College.
Okay.
Sir, actually, in survey paper, when we are publishing survey paper in any Research Index Journal or anything, what will be the basic level? I mean, how many words it should be, sir? Like how many pages?
No, every journal has their own guidelines. So you have to follow the guidelines of the journal. Somebody insists 8,000 words, somebody insists 5,000 words and all. So you have to follow the guidelines of the journal. Madam, to publish an article, the journal will give you the guidelines, madam. According to the guidelines given by the journal, you have to publish.
Okay, sir. Fine, understood. Thank you.
Hello. Hello.
Sir, tell me, sir.
I am Dr. Akhilesh Kumar Singh from Aditya Engineering College, Surampalam.
Okay.
Yes, sir. My question is that now that it is a today nowadays is a lockdown, and most of the faculty, they want to write the review paper because they didn't have the input data.
Yeah.
If they have input data, they can go for the technical paper, or we call the research article, anything. Okay. So what happened when we going to write the review paper? If you search in the net also, there are lots of review papers are there. If you are thinking about any topic, so lots of review papers we are finding. Okay. So if I think that I want to write one review paper in the welding, maybe a TIG welding or maybe a friction stir welding, anyone, but there is a review paper.
Okay.
So maybe the current voltage, whatever scenario.
Okay, first you download or read the hello. Is it audible now?
Yes, yes.
So first you identify your research interest, then download the related review papers. If I think nobody won't cover everything, so there will be something that was not covered by the earlier researchers. Identify it. That's what we will call it as a research gap. Then try to publish. So you see the process or method how the earlier research was done, and I will show a review paper beautifully presented. Then that maybe are in your research area, that kind of similar paper may be there. So with that guidelines, you can able to present. So I'll just show you now another paper.
Okay. Thank you.
అయిపోయా
Sir, is it visible now?
Yeah, it visible alternative measures of service quality.
See, I told you my research is in service quality, and this paper helped me a lot to progress in my research area. So I followed this paper. So that's why I kept this paper. So alternative measures of service quality. So what do you mean by service quality? And it is only a review paper. No analysis is there. So done by Ridha Ladari, Department of Business Administration, University of Moncton, Canada. So see, the design itself, the methodology approach, they says that a total of 30 studies are selected from 2 well-known databases, Science Direct and ABN, something like that.
Sorry to disturb you. It is a structured abstract or unstructured abstract?
It is an abstract. There is nothing like structured abstract and unstructured.
No, sir, what happened in a structured and unstructured abstract, you have differentiate between the with paragraph and this. In this abstract, there are some headings over there. Headings.
It is the style of the journals.
Some journals they were asking
this format. So every
some journals they were asking.
Okay, there is nothing like structured abstract and unstructured abstract. Abstract is abstract, but some journals have their own guidelines, so style guidelines. So that means for the readability or to enhance the readability of the participants, so they frame how much lines per page and what is the paragraph sequencing and space between one line to other line. This is only for to enhance the readability. There is nothing wrong in that, and there is no scientific aspects involved in that.
Hello.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, madam.
Sir.
Yeah, madam.
I'm a research scholar. I'm just observing this article, sir. You were telling that no such things like structured abstract and unstructured abstract. So what we draft in a paragraph, we are going to call it as unstructured. And if you quote headings like this, like a research methodology, purpose and all, we are going to call it as a structured abstract. Is that true? Is there any standard format for drafting an abstract? I agree that the journals are giving a format in general to write any articles. If there is no any information regarding drafting abstract, which one is preferable, sir?
Madam, abstract is only synthesizing the paper in a very simple form. So by reading the abstract, you should have some idea about your research. That's it. The abstract only serves that purpose. So if there is a heading, there is no heading, that doesn't mean any purpose. So suppose if you prepare a PhD also, maybe 200 pages or 300 pages. So they may not have time to read entire your thesis. So they may be very much interested what you did and what are the major contributions or findings of your research. So they may be interested to read your executive summary or abstract, maybe 1 page, 2 page. So the 1 page or 2 page covers the whole of your research. So that's it. The 10 lines which you are, or 15 lines, that the abstract should represent or reflect the whole of your research paper. That's it.
So the conclusion is there is no standard format like
no standard
like
format
for the abstract.
Yeah, you have to, the words, the language that we are using should represent the completeness of your research paper. That's it, in my view.
Sir.
In my view.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Shall we proceed to the next presentation? Maybe after another half an hour again, we will go for the question answers. Otherwise, we will be missing.
Okay, sir.
Yes. Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Okay. Or is the PPT is visible?
Yes, sir. Research design and sampling. See the PPT which is visible.
Okay, so we'll spend some time on in continuation to the earlier research process that you are that is only the fundamental aspects, and we will also go with this research design and sampling and how to proceed further. So first we understood the review of literature, and second aspect we understood the research process. Then third is like how to carry out the research to progress further. So this is called research design, and sampling aspects will be there, and we'll be focusing on that. As I told you in the earlier aspect also, it is a blueprint or framework for conducting the research aspect. Suppose if you prepare a miniature aspect, then you can able to identify the any faults are there, any mistakes are there, or a prototype if it is always helpful for you to go for a better research. So research design is like this. So first identify and define the research problem and formulate clear, concise, researchable hypothesis and identify the data requirements. Then identify and perform analysis to test hypothesis, and then interpret and communicate results. So these are the 5 steps, very important steps to formulate the research design. So I've taken an illustration also to this, what is meant by research design. Suppose if it is identifying and defining a problem, we'll take a simple problem because of now everybody is on online purchases have been increased a lot. So I would like to know my research problem is the one it indicates that impact of online channel usage on customer profitability. Suppose that is what the research problem. For example, I'm taking how online channel usage enhances or increases customer profitability. So that's for the first step. Second one, I'm refining the research problem into researchable hypothesis. So online adoption causes increased customer profitability. This is what I'm guessing. Hypothesis means it is predictive or reasonable judgments that were made out of your research. So my research problem is impact of online usage on customer profitability, but I formulated the research hypothesis. I'm predicting, I'm guessing that online adoption causes increased customer profitability. So you can form n number of hypotheses so that your research problem will be solved. So that is what the second step. Then identify the data requirements: customer profitability, online status, demographics. So I am using the words called customer profitability, online status, demographics. So again, I have to think myself that what is meant by customer profitability. That is what we will call it as operational definition. So what do you mean by customer profitability? Are the researcher then prepare some measurement to measure customer profitability, to measure status, and to measure the demographics. Then comparison of profitability between online and offline customers. So in the first review of literature paper, I told you can compare your research with other research, you can criticize, you can synthesize, you can sum up. So this 4-1 I'm comparing. So I'm comparing the online customers profitability as well as offline customers profitability. This we can call it as a different comparative research. So interpret and communicate results. There is no difference in profitability in terms of online and offline. So if you see the first step 1, impact of online channel usage on customer profitability, I would like to know online channel usage affects the customer profitability or not. Then I formulated the hypothesis: online adoption causes increased the customer profitability. I thought that if you buy online, the customer's profitability will be enhanced. So in a more format, I'm measuring customer profitability. Data requirements means I should know what is customer profitability, what is online status, what is online buying, what is demographics. Then comparison of comparing profitability between online and offline customers. And there is finally concluding with there is no difference in profitability whether it is online or offline. So this will spend some little time, maybe what is a research design and all. Research designs are basically 2 types. Maybe in some textbooks they may having different classification, and this is one I liked it most. And there is nothing like you should follow this, whatever the textbook or whatever the information you can follow. But most of the cases it is accepted. Like there is only 2 types of research designs are there. One is exploratory, another one is conclusive. Exploratory research design means if you are doing for the first time and nobody else did that kind of research, we'll call it as exploratory research. And rest of exploratory research, all are conclusive research. Rest of exploratory research, all are conclusive research. For the first time, if somebody is doing or attempted to do a particular research with a complete unknown aspect, we'll call it as exploratory research. Let us say we'll take example of COVID-19, inventing a medicine for COVID-19. It is exploratory research. So nobody won't have any idea about what kind of treatment or medicine will cure. Suppose if somebody identified that this drug will cure COVID-19, and several people will continue, extend the research. So that is what we call it as a conclusive research. So I'll give an example. Somebody did first time that service quality effects in banking sector, then it is called exploratory research. So service quality in banking sector. I did service quality in hospitality sector, then it is not an exploratory research. It is comes under the conclusive research, because already somebody did it in banking sector. I am extending the research to other sectors. So in case of conclusive research, you have two types, that is descriptive research and causal research. And in the descriptive research, you have cross-sectional design and longitudinal design. And in cross-sectional design, single cross-sectional design and multiple cross-sectional design is there. So among all these things, so exploratory research, conclusive research, descriptive research, and causal research, these three researches are very important. So exploratory, descriptive, and causal. So we'll be discussing more of these three types in an elaborative manner. So I think that research is also like a continuum as a scale. One extreme, it is exploratory, absolute ambiguity or absolute unknownness. Suppose if you don't know anything about what you are doing, or completely no clarity about your research, and you would like to know, aimed at inventing something new, then we will call it as exploratory research. We'll take an example. Suppose ONGC or other oil rigging manufacturer, they would like to extract, they would like to identify oil. So they do the explorations. So they dig somewhere, maybe they identify some points, they guess something that if they drill there, automatically oil reserves will be there and all. So it is a completely unknown phenomena. Then we'll call it as an exploratory research. So completely certain or some extent known, then we will call it as causal or descriptive research. Basically three: exploratory, causal, or descriptive. If you know the phenomenon of research, you are aware of what you are doing, then causal or descriptive. And exploratory, if you don't know about the research, then we'll call it as exploratory. Uncertainty. Then exploratory research is like initially research conducted to clarify and define the nature of the problem, and it does not provide any conclusive evidence, and subsequent research expected, like sending satellites to other planets, oil drilling, and maybe till now there is no exact and curable medicine for AIDS. You can still add the COVID-19. Several medical laboratories are working out